This conference will now be recorded.
Christina, if you think it's time to start, just give me a cue, okay?
Sure, let's give, because I see that some people are still joining, so let's give 1 more minute and then we continue. I'm gonna give you the cue, yes. Frank, I think that we can start slowly and hopefully in the couple of minutes of the introduction of the webinar, people would continue to join.
All right. Thank you, Christina. Welcome everybody to the webinar on ecosystem analysis for digital innovation hubs. I'm happy and proud to be presenting this and have been collaborating with a digital innovation hub in our network. So my name is Frank Berkers. I work with my colleague Kristina Karanikalova from TNO, and we have a guest. That's Milica Trajkovic from the BioSense Institute. Good. Click yes to minimize this. Yes. Okay, here are some house rules for online webinars. The webinar will be recorded and the materials from the webinar will be shared after the event via the innovation portal from SmartAgriHubs. Please stay muted unless you are speaking, and please close the camera unless you are presenting. You can leave questions in the chat that will be monitored. So thank you for keeping up with these rules. Good. What do we have in store for today? opening. That's what I'm doing now. I will start off with an introduction to ecosystem analysis. So basically the theory around it. I intertwined a few assignments for you to practice doing that. And we have an example of a digital innovation hub called BioSense. After that, there will be some time for Q&A, and we'll end with closing. We have a tight schedule, so I will be moving quickly, but do stop me via the chat if there are urgent questions. Thank you. Good. Ecosystem analysis. I think most of you have seen this picture before. It represents the Digital Innovation Hub. And as you can see, there are role types of organizations around this blob. And that's really one of the major tasks of a Digital Innovation Hub, to set up and keep relationships with any of these types, because all of these type of actors do play a role in making impact with innovation. But it's your role to learn how to do that. And the purpose of this seminar is to explain how you could do it. One thing to look at is to understand differences and overlaps between innovation and business ecosystem. So some of my colleagues defined what is a business ecosystem and what is an innovation ecosystem. And basically what we get from this definition is that there's an interplay, but an innovation ecosystem is basically a subset of a business ecosystem. So it's just the group of organizations that is focusing on developing, adopting, and implementing new products, services, or processes. But it will impact the business ecosystem. It says business ecosystem, but it does not only include businesses. So I think that's also good for you to be aware of. So that's about definitions. Why would you do ecosystem assessment as a digital innovation hub? Well, it's about mapping and assessing relevant stakeholders and their roles. So it's just having a clear view. I suspect you will not be working on your own, so it's something you can share and talk about with your colleagues. So as it's explicit information. It can help you identify strengths, gaps, and weaknesses in your regional ecosystem, because not each ecosystem is the same. Your situations differ. Where, in what type of parties are you strong, and what type of parties are you not so strong as an ecosystem? It can help you plan on how to better support the ecosystem and establish links with or attract key partners or initiatives. So by seeing the weaknesses and strengths of your ecosystem, you can set up a plan to get in touch with this type of party, or maybe seek help for that. It also helps you to better position the Digital Innovation Hub in the ecosystem and tailor the offering to meet the identified needs. So in summary, I consider an ecosystem assessment as an information asset. An information asset which you will reuse quite often. So you do it to understand your ecosystem, but you will also use it in brokering. You will also use it in setting up projects. You will also use it in dialogue with your stakeholders. So it's something, an investment that will return much more often. So why should you be collaborating within the ecosystem? So here's a number of terms that I'll briefly go into, and it's quite a lot. Collaborating with the ecosystem is useful for managing interdependencies and IP. So when you are about to serve innovation, basically it is an integration of multiple technologies. It's an integration of what different parties have to offer, and you have to manage and understand these interdependencies, specifically when things are moving towards the farm. They have to be interoperable. Shared funding, it's quite expensive to do innovation, so typically governments and parties put money together and do a shared research program. So this is also part of collaborating within an ecosystem. To monitor and add to the speed of innovation. So in the last years, we have been observing increasing speeds of innovation, and having a wide network to monitor what's going on can help you take the right action. So it's also a monitor. TRL progress, these are technology readiness levels, and these demarcate different phases in the development of technology. And in different phases, you need different partners to collaborate with. It starts from the fundamental part, typically working with universities, towards the applied part, towards the go-to-market, where businesses will be playing their roles. So different parties, different stakeholders in the different phases, different types of funding as well. Quadruple Helix, this might be a term familiar with you, for you, working with different types of actors, such as the government, such as businesses, such as schools, such as citizens, for instance. Joint risk and opportunities, because you are an ecosystem, you will be exposed to the same type of trends and to the same type of opportunities. So by acknowledging you are in the same boat, you can look at that and maybe think of actions to improve your position. By being a one-stop shop, you can get support from governments. That's quite interesting for a government to have a one-stop shop that manages the ecosystem, that understands that all the parties in the regional economy are part of the same boat. So a digital innovation hub is a good instrument to manage public value. In addressing the innovation and the challenges you have in your region, you might face market and system failure. And this is also a good reason to have close collaboration with governments and large parties and education institutes, etc., in order to be able to combat market and system failure. And the last reason for collaborating within your ecosystem could be to manage the complexity of innovation. So there are many specialists out there, many parties that innovate on a specific part, and it's your job to understand the complexity of the whole thing and to be integrative in all of that. So plenty of good reasons to collaborate within the ecosystem. So also plenty of good reasons to systematically chart what's out there. So collaborating with whom? We just saw a lot of reasons to actually start collaborating, but why and with whom? In this table, and it will continue also on the next table, we charted a number of actor categories that we know and that you also have seen on this Digital Innovation Hub blob that I showed in the beginning. So we created a list, and just for your reference, and I will ask you also to do an exercise on this, so please pay attention. Actor categories, now typical value chain actors come in different actor types, like core companies, suppliers, customers, the farming community, chemical companies, electricity sector, industrial manufacturer or equipment manufacturers, engineering and maintenance. So I think you are quite familiar with these type of actors. What type of roles do they play in innovation? They design, they produce, they market, they do value chain management. Another category would be research, technology, and innovation actors. That would be universities, RTOs, such as TNO, business research organizations, but also private company labs would also fall under this category. What do? They do research and development, technology development, and applied research. Education and training institutes could be schools, universities again, polytechnics, and vocational education. Basically, institutes that create new type of employees. So they focus on training and skills. And there might be some overlap, of course, with RTOs. Quite likely. Government actors, that could be national, regional, and local governments, could also be EU and international bodies, could also be agencies supporting the government tasks. What do? They create policies and instruments. They create new regulation, or they monitor regulation. They provide funding to stimulate certain actions, and they also do agenda setting. So creating a perspective for the future. They also sometimes bring parties together. Next category would be intermediaries and multipliers. So these can help you scale trade union, clusters, specific actors per industry. For instance, agri-extension services. And they can help you get access to a lot more companies or individuals. Societal actors like non-profit organizations or NGOs, and of course, finance organizations like banks, public funding, and VC, venture capital. And what do? They judge investment plans and provide funding, providing also advice. You might find some case-specific actor categories in your region, so there's room there to explain that. So that was quite a broad overview of actor types, which we will ask you to chart in a bit. If you have done that, then still the question, how can you relate to them? As a digital innovation hub, there are many ways of relating to different types of organizations. I will not discuss these in detail. You can take the slides afterwards, but as you can see, there are different ways of trying to build a relationship with one of the other organizations. Christina, maybe it's a good moment to share the URL for the template for the exercise. Can you do that? And please use audio to confirm.
It is in the chat box, so you can.
All right, thanks. Yeah, another way of dealing with your ecosystem would be the provision and usage of your innovation services. I think most of you are familiar with this list of services, so I will not go into detail. We have described them in the deliverable, and these are also in the maturity model in our portal. But for each of these services, you either by yourself or you use ecosystem partners to provide it to other members of the ecosystem. For instance, incubator or accelerator support is something that you might do yourself, or you might have a related organization that provides incubator and accelerator support towards startups in your region. So that is the way you interact with the ecosystem. All right, now block 2 is about ecosystem assessment in practice. We have created this 5-step approach, which is basically mimicking a learning cycle. And the first step would be to set up a digital innovation hub strategy and partnership objectives. Some weeks ago, my colleague Stavros gave a webinar on digital innovation hub strategy. You might want to review that. This is really what that is about. In that step, you will create a business model and identify the services you want to deliver. You define what impact your digital innovation hub is supposed to achieve, and you define the ecosystem boundaries. Second step would be ecosystem mapping. And that's basically charting for this list that I just provided. Which companies and organizations do you know that match this actor type? and what type of partnership mechanisms of this whole wall of mechanisms are you using to interrelate with them. It will give you also a network overview. So if you have charted that, and that's basically a factual analytical approach, you are basically asked to find something. Is it good or is it bad? What are strengths? What are weaknesses? What are missing links in your ecosystem? If you have done that analysis, and this is also, of course, your opinion, then think of an ecosystem action plan and strategy development. So given the strengths and weaknesses, which actions can I take to improve my situation by involving new partners or developing better improvement mechanisms for linkages? So you can have the right actors in your ecosystem, but your relationship may not be as good. So that can all be actions in your plan. After that, you implement this plan, and then after some time, you will do monitoring and continuous reassessment. So I did an ecosystem analysis half a year ago. Things have changed. Are the relationships still good? So evaluate and update your Digital Innovation Hub strategy, develop impact indicators, and identify new partners and developments. And then you can update the strategy. And the whole thing starts anew. So these are basically the steps, and we will now dive into the first step. And for this first step, I'm asking you to take some time and look at the template that can be opened via the link that Christina provided in the chat. On the front end of this template, there is a table, and I'm asking you to pick one actor type and try to write down the names of some of those actors of that actor type that you know. Can you provide a count? Are there one, few, many, or a lot of those actor types? What type of roles do they play in your ecosystem? What core competencies does this actor type fulfill? Are these type of actors, are they big? Are they small in terms of employees or turnover? Or is there a lot of variation between them? Where are these parties based? Are they regional, national, Europe, or international? So the challenge is for you to pick one actor type. On the back end of the template, or page 2, for the digital version, there is this list, this table of actor types. Just pick one and try to answer for yourself these questions. Should be very factual. I'll give you like 2.5 minutes for that, and then maybe you can share some experiences in doing that. So we will not discuss the actual content, but please share your experience in doing the exercise. Okay, I'm counting 2.5 minutes. 20 seconds. All right, that's it. Is there anyone willing to comment on, say, the experience of doing this exercise? You can unmute yourself and explain. Can I ask maybe random person, Lucia from Data Life? Are you willing to explain?
Gosh, you put me on the spot here. Okay,
it's okay
well,
to say no if you don't want to, but
no, that's okay. That's okay. Don't worry.
thank you.
Well, I try, but to be honest, we are yet to do this exercise internally, so a bit difficult to me. I'm not sure, for example, what I should be saying in summary assessment.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that was not yet part of the exercise, just until
Okay.
location.
And well, the other thing is that I only have one example of one actor type. So
Yeah.
I don't know how I will manage to do it for all the types that you list on this table.
Yeah, so you were able to do it for one actor type?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, indeed. So to reflect a little bit on that, indeed, in my experience, when we do this exercise with people, it's very tedious. Huh? You go through this list and try to do it for all actor types. What I usually experience is, indeed, it's tedious, but also usually it gives people feeling, okay, I don't know this type of actor. I do really know this type of actor. But if you don't know a certain type of actor, that's also a clear gap in your or this person's knowledge, which can be filled. It's not like rocket science. You can find something about government agencies, or you can find something about SMEs in your region. And so that it's not really rocket science. And typically what I experienced, there's also people in the vicinity of a digital innovation hub that do have relationships with the ones that you are not knowledgeable about. So one, it's tedious. Two, it's not rocket science. It can be done. I think that this is, for me, summarizing the experience of doing that. If there are any specific questions, you can ask them now in the chat. We will catch up on those later. Thank you, Lucia, for coming forward, putting you on the spot. So that's really
no worries. You're welcome.
Brave of you, I would say. Okay, step 2, ecosystem assessment. There are basically 2 approaches for ecosystem assessment. One would be to do it on factors. So first doing whole the exercise and then looking at that as a whole, strengths and weaknesses, or you can do it, consider strengths and weaknesses actor type by actor type. So that's a different approach. I think the latter is a little bit more tedious, more intensive, but I'll explain both of them. So the first one is the SWOT analysis, and this is typically, as you might been familiar with, strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Looking at internal factors under control of the Digital Innovation Hub, knowledge, technologies, competencies, intellectual property, process and management capabilities. This is exactly the part of this that the maturity model helps you with. So internal factors under control of the Digital Innovation Hub relies links to strengths and weaknesses. Opportunities and threats are things out there. external factors beyond control of the Digital Innovation Hub, competition in technologies and competences, market developments and trends, customer developments, policies and framework conditions. Of course, by means of your relationships, you can influence all of these. So this is, you try to look at the Digital Innovation Hub as a whole and your ecosystem analysis as a whole and try to answer these questions. Might look like this. Come on. Yes. In this example, I listed of a given Digital Innovation Hub in a different sector, some of the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. I decided not to discuss them because in the BioSense example, we have more concrete, relevant for you also examples. But you can refer to this when looking into the slides. So thanks. I'm asking you now to do the second bit of the exercise, and that's indeed to look at the importance and the summary assessment. Indeed, Lucia also already tried to do this. Now it's the question really, okay, you look at this individual actor type, which you have just investigated, and ask yourself, how important is this actor type for your Digital Innovation Hub's goals? Try to write down a summary assessment for the specific actor type that you charted. Given the importance of this actor type, would you agree to the following statement? The actor type is sufficiently connected and capable to fulfill its role with respect to my Digital Innovation Hub's objectives. Rate 1 if you disagree, or rate 5 if you strongly agree. So that's the exercise. We'll start the countdown in a bit. So this is the actor by actor approach. Of course, I'm asking you now to look at importance and look at that. A more advanced approach would be to set up specific criteria in order to evaluate this actor type or the whole set of actors. We're not doing that today. Today, I'm just asking about importance as is. Okay, take 1.5 minutes to answer the questions on importance and make the summary assessment. And I might ask someone voluntarily. Time has started. Just 20 seconds. That's time. All right. Anyone willing to share the experience in giving importance and a summary assessment to the actor type that you have rated? I'm trying to ask one voluntarily. If you don't feel comfortable, just say no, okay? Marco Brokin, are you willing to share your experience?
Hi, yeah, so I mean, it might be, I mean, it will be interesting because I'm from the same organization as Milica, who is presenting later. So I'm guessing she will mention something similar when she's presenting. But what I have taken as I mean, who I've taken as an actor is from the education category. So the type would be university. I have named two, one in the University of Novi Sad and the University of Belgrade. So that would be two actors for the roles. I have listed knowledge and competence providers, as well as, let's say, providers of top talent or actually of people who would be working within the BioSense Digital Innovation Hub. Their core competencies would be knowledge. They're from, as I mentioned, Novi Sad and Belgrade. So, in my opinion, their importance is high. And right now, I think BioSense is, you know, pretty. They are integrated pretty well in the ecosystem. So I said maybe a 4. I'm guessing. I mean, I will say there's always room for improvement. You know, especially I think with University of Belgrade, since it's in another city, since BioSense is in Novi Sad. So I would say that, you know, the cooperation with the University of Novi Sad is very good, and maybe, you know, it can be worked more on the cooperation with University of Belgrade.
Okay, yeah, this is a very clear and clean answer. Thank you, Marco, for coming forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Useful. Although we will discuss the example in more detail later. All right, this was indeed exercise 2. Then the next action, next step in the circle would be to devise an action plan based on the assessment. Developing an action plan. So based on the SWOT analysis, you can draw conclusions, try to identify key action points for enhancing the structure and functioning of the innovation ecosystem, actions to overcome internal weaknesses and external threats, actions needed to build an effective innovation network, try to identify missing links, partners, roles, and mechanisms to address weaknesses and threats in the ecosystem. Yeah, in doing an action plan, beware of course, of the interests of your partners, the tensions and conflicts. As Marco just explained, okay, a university has different interests as a digital innovation hub, should of course be aware of that. So that's basically the plan. I find when looking at a specific actor type and having all this wall of possible linkages, possible ways of interacting with partners, quite useful to think of ways to improve the relationship with certain actor types. So by having this narrow focus, doing all this tedious work with the different actors types, you will come up with a plan. We don't have the time to exercise with that right now, but typically I'm quite sure if you do this in a structured way, you will be able to do that. Last step, monitoring and continuous reassessment. Okay, that would be based on the action plan, of course. Revisit the Digital Innovation Hub strategy and consider the key partner services to address the gaps in the ecosystem, the value proposition to the stakeholders. You can identify key performance indicators and milestones to monitor the performance of your actions and the effects of your actions. And try to do this on a very regular basis. Continuously is a little bit overwhelming, I would say. You don't do this every day, but regularly re-evaluate your position in the ecosystem. There might be new stakeholders. There might, of course, also be stakeholders that drop off, and that's life. Identify new ways of supporting the ecosystem. So talk to your peers, basically. What are they seeing? What are they doing? How are they dealing with new types of organizations? That's basically the full circle. It was really, really quickly, but I think you have experienced the way of doing the ecosystem analysis. It is a lot of work, but you will benefit from it a lot in the activities you do, like brokering, like creating new project proposals, and of course, building new relationships, because the ecosystem is your key asset when being a digital innovation hub. I'd like now to give the word to Milica. She is head of business development department of the BioSense Institute. She's a certified PMI project manager and experienced in EU-funded projects focused on digital agriculture and developments of ICTs for agri-food value chain. Milica, please take the word and say click to me whenever you want me to click.
Thank you, Frank. So first of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present BioSense here in this workshop. Thank you very much. And now we can click on the first slide. So what is BioSense Institute and where we are? We are in Serbia. As my colleague Marko said, we are in Novi Sad. It is the capital of North Province of Serbia, Vojvodina. And it is part of Pannonian Plain. So we have a very fertile land on the one side. On the other side, we have a very well-developed ICT sector in Novi Sad and generally speaking in north part of Serbia. So years before, our ICT engineers were thinking what to do to be able to boost Serbian economy and to boost this part of Serbia. So the logical choice was to merge IT and agriculture, to try to make the use out of ICT in agriculture. That is how BioSense Institute was developed, first as a center at a Faculty of Technical Sciences and then as an independent institute, which is part of Novi Sad University. From just several researchers till today, when we have more than 100 employees, we've been through a really tough times and challenging times. So on the next slide, we will see which main stakeholders we have. So Frank, you can click on the next slide.
Yes.
Yes, here. So we were developing our institute step by step, with carefully choosing stakeholders and their inputs. First of all, we said, okay, we don't want to have an institute, a research and development institute, just dedicated to excellent scientific papers and forward-thinking scientists which will make just extraordinary papers. We wanted to have something which can be implemented on an average farm size. So not for the huge companies who are in agriculture for business, but for the average Serbian farmer. That is why we we've chosen farmers to be one of our main stakeholders. We wanted to know what their needs are and how they're thinking, what would benefit them. So not our researchers to develop some gadgets or sensors or drones just for themselves according to their opinion, but according to needs from farmers. Then the next step was to include ICT community. Why? Because we wanted to boost the ICT sector as well in Serbia, because it is majority of the sector is into outsourcing business for huge European and basically world companies. So we wanted to boost them to have their own products to offer. Of course, we are advocating for agriculture, for implementation of ICT in agriculture. The next step was government. We realized that if we want to approach all of them, we need a support from the government. And then step by step, we got into a situation where we have all the stakeholders. However, we are constantly facing the lack of adoption of ICTs among farmers, despite all of our tryings and all our efforts. So we decided to focus on students and pupils. You will later, and that is one of our focuses, which I will be talking later, which Marco also mentioned. So I would go now to SWOT analysis of BioSense to make all these things so you can feel basically everything that I'm speaking about. Oh, okay, here it is. So it's always hard to have a clear self-estimation and objective self-estimation. But as I said, we are connecting, we are focusing on Quadruple Helix, as Frank mentioned before. So we have ICT community, we have industry, we have government, we have academia, and of course we have farmers, which are basically end users for technologies that we are developing. One of our main strengths is that we are research-driven innovation with practical application. Of course, we are aiming at great publications in Nature and similar journals. However, we try to have a practical implementation of the knowledge we are creating. Equipment. We have really advanced laboratories in BioSense, but at the same time, we opened all those technologies for everyone in Serbia. One of the ways how we promote ICT in agriculture is with a digital farm of Serbia. So we made some kind of a IKEA for agriculture in one of the huge fields in Vojvodina, in north part of Serbia. We installed our equipment and we're showing it once per month to interested parties, just as a way of educating people. However, in the next phase, I will speak more about further things that we plan to do based on this. Weaknesses. Okay, we are part of Novi Sad University. It is a public institute, public university. So we have some administrative burdens in decision making. We are providing, as Digital Innovation Hub, we are providing support to startups and SMEs. And we faced that they need more support in internationalization and generally speaking in scaling up, because till now we are mostly focusing on seed type of and the early stage of startups, and of course personnel that is working on, of course, as in many other organizations and many things in parallel. Which are our opportunities? This is very important for every organization to know exactly what is around it, who and what are trends in industry, in generally speaking, in ecosystem that is around a digital innovation hub. We are lucky that with our dedication in all these years, we have a strong reputation, the same as in Serbia, as well as Europe-wide and worldwide. As Marco said, we are strongly connected with the university, and that is our opportunity to have best people that are finishing University of Novi Sad, employed in BioSense. With a smart specialization strategy, Vojvodina region has decided to have 4 main fields. 2 out of 4 are things where BioSense is involved. So one is ICT, second is agriculture. So that is also one of the reasons why why we're building a strong connection with our government, both provincial government as well as the national one, because we are, let's say, at the same page with the main strategy of Republic of Serbia. As well, we know that agroecology will be a focus point in the following years, both in Serbia as well as in Europe. And BioSense already is working on agroecology and has experience here and has results here. So we think that it should be exploited in future. Threats. Okay, for adoption of ICTs, it is very important to have some digital literacy in Serbia. Unfortunately, it is quite low. On average, let's speak in average farmers. We have lack of similar institutions which could share experience and knowledge with us. This might sound as an opportunity, but we are trying to, in our work, we are trying always to look at a most pessimistic way. Why? Because it's always better to have a plan B and to have a rigorous predictions. So this is, according to our opinion, a threat because we are alone. No one can tell us, okay, you're not doing this well, or you're completely in a wrong direction. We need to be able to self-estimate ourselves and to estimate the surrounding very carefully and very objectively. Then Serbia is not part of EU. We don't have an access to structural funds, to many other opportunities that EU members have. But we are trying to find other sources of income and trying to overcome this. And of course, COVID-19 is obvious threat. We are working with SMEs, with startups in this situation. They are quite in a not so good situation. Let's go through that. So based on all 4 lines of analysis, we made some kind of an action plan. These 4 are the ones that are publicly available, so that I can share with you. Those are not all. However, just to present how strengths and weaknesses can be combined in order to have a strategy, because all these analyses are there not just for themselves, but to have an input for a strategy development. For strategic decisions. So further support to startups and scale up. So we are currently negotiating with one of the best, and I can say the best, startup accelerator in Europe. I cannot now tell more, but stay tuned, follow BioSense on all social media, and you will find out who we are talking with and what we will offer this autumn to all our startups. Then active awareness raising activities. So first of all, we will have a lot of demonstrations this autumn, and in the following year we will focus on vegetable production. Later on, as Marco said, the education is quite important. So we are approaching high schools dedicated to agriculture to try to convince the future decision makers that ICT is really the future. So not to convince their fathers and grandparents, but to convince and to show how ICT can benefit them during high school, even during high school. So tomorrow, when they when they are decision makers, they will be able, according to us, of course, to implement technologies wiser. We're always working on our laboratories and our resources, which are open to all our customers, all our beneficiaries, so to SMEs, to other parts of University of Novi Sad, to all that Digital Innovation Hub is offering its services. And of course, we are one of our strategical directions is to lead agricultural digitization in Serbia, and basically all previous steps are there, and many other that we are cooking aside are there to help SMEs, industry, government, and everyone to implement ICT in agriculture and to boost our economy in this way. So briefly, this was it. I hope I was on time. If you have any questions, please, I'm here.
Thank you, Milica. That was a very informative presentation and understandable profile and strengths and weaknesses. And so I also understand this action plan quite well. And indeed, we have just a little bit of time. So please, if there are any questions to Milica or to me, but please ask them.
Yep.
Oh, we
and
have
of course
one
you can. Yep.
We have one question towards Frank. If there is any digital tool for the ecosystem mapping that you're aware of, some people are considering SRM as an option. So if you are aware of one of them, and I also have one question towards Milica, and this is, do you find this ecosystem analysis useful? And is this something that you did in the beginning, and are you doing it continuously? Or and if it's continuously, how often are you doing it?
I'll pick up the first one. I don't use any software to do ecosystem mapping. I know some of the institutes do CRM, customer relationship management tools, but basically I find it more useful to do it in Excel or in Word, just to write them down and then later port them to such a system. But this is because I work typically in the setting up of a digital innovation hub or making the ideas of an innovation hub, and I'm not so much involved in the operation thereof. So that's a limited view, but I'm not using it. Milica, can you answer your question?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the question. We are quite young institution, so at the beginning we were doing things on our own, and at the end it turned out that we were doing some analysis and some stakeholder analysis, but we didn't know that it is called like that, or that it is Swot or any other analysis. So yes, we were analyzing stakeholders and our environment, but at the beginning not in a structured way to say, okay, now we're brainstorming about Swot, or now we're brainstorming about something else. But for sure, we were aware who is around us and how we can involve them in our research, and how on the other side what we can offer them, what are their needs. And basically, even now, we're constantly asking for the needs of our environment in order to be able to answer it in a scientific way.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
So thank you, Milica. Thank you very much for your very good presentation and the content. And maybe I missed something. How is BioSense financed?
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
Okay. So BioSense is a state-owned institute, so it receives some funding from the state of Serbia. However, we are proud to have more than 35 Horizon projects, which are really a huge part of our finances, and the support to our research is mainly in Horizon. For example, we are selected to be one of the center of excellence for agriculture in Europe, with a funding of 28 million euros. However, we also, beside state projects and Horizons and some other small projects like from Erasmus Plus and similar with similar topics, we have also commercial contracts with organizations.
Maybe I have another question.
Yes.
Last one then.
And so do you have negotiations with the government if it's state funded? In which kind of projects, directions you are working?
Well, everything that it's obvious, of course, that we are just in agriculture, focused on agriculture, and the topics are basically, it's not so much negotiation based, it's more needs based. For example, it was a couple of years ago when we had the mastitis problem in Serbia, a huge one. So it was said by the government, we need a solution for this. And we were developing a solution for mastitis and for early detection and so on. So it is both way. Sometimes we say, okay, we have this and this, we can offer and we would like to work on following topics, but sometimes it is one way, so from the government to us.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all participants for listening to us and asking questions and doing the exercise. Thank you, Milica, for explaining the BioSense Institute. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. So we have monthly webinars from SmartAgriHubs. In August, we will not have one, holidays. In September, we have a tentative one on European Digital Innovation Hub networks, and also in collaboration with DNet. In October, we have one planned on farmer-centric innovation. And in mid-November, we will be explaining the friendly peer review mechanism. For December, we do not have anything planned yet. So that's upcoming. Again, thank you very much. And if you have any summer holiday breaks, like I'm having next week, please do enjoy it. And otherwise, keep on working and stay healthy. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.